Day 74 of the war in Gaza, with IDF troops continuing intense battles against Hamas in the heart of northern and southern Gaza. The IDF taking out a top Hamas money man in a Gaza airstrike, and meanwhile, a massive barrage of rockets fired today towards central Israel. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Day 74 of the war in Gaza, and a major battlefield achievement for the IDF, with full control now established in the former Hamas stronghold of Beit Hanun. Resistance has collapsed, and remaining Hamas gunmen have been imprisoned. The 252nd Reserve Division has completed operations against Hamas in Beit Hanun and handed over responsibility of the region to the Gaza Division, indicating the military has firm control of that sector. Forces are advancing in Sejaya. The IDF says troops of the Golani Infantry Brigade are engaged in intense fighting with the Hamas Sejaya Battalion. According to military estimates, some 600 Hamas operatives have been killed in Sejaya over the past 2 weeks, 200 of them by Golani soldiers. Golani has a bitter connection with Sejaya. Last week, 10 soldiers, including 2 senior officers, were killed in an ambush by Hamas in the neighborhood. Before that, in the 2014 war, 7 soldiers were killed in Sejaya when their APC was hit during fighting. As the 13th Battalion captured Palestine Square in Sejaya, it destroyed the Hamas monument there commemorating that deadly attack on the armored personnel carrier. Visiting U.S. Defense Secretary Austin says it's Israel and not the U.S. that will decide how long the war will last.
This is Israel's operation, and I'm not here to dictate timelines or terms. Our support to Israel's right to defend itself is ironclad, as you've heard me say a number of times, and that's not going to change. It's critical, as I said earlier, that Hamas not be able to threaten Israel from Gaza or even threaten Gaza anymore.
Meanwhile, nearly 200 trucks of humanitarian aid entered Gaza directly from Israel. The spike in the number of aid trucks into Gaza is due to the decision by Israel to reopen its Kerem Shalom crossing for the first time since the start of the war.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
And joining us now with more on the latest in the Gaza war and the U.S. Secretary of Defense's visit to Israel, as well as the UN vote, is Fleur Hassan Nahum, Jerusalem Deputy Mayor, co-founder of the Israel-UAE Business Council, and co-founder of the Gulf Israel Women's Forum. Fleur, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start with the U.S. Secretary of Defense's visit. He's here in Israel and is showing really full support and backing for the IDF in Gaza. But at the same time, the U.S. Is deciding on whether to use its veto power in the UN to block a call for a ceasefire. I mean, it seems a bit like mixed messaging. I mean, what's your analysis of his visit and of the UN vote?
Well, first of all, I think he made it very clear that he's not putting a timeline on Israel and the war. The mistake that we have made, and sometimes our allies have made, is to force Israel into retreating before we actually get rid of the existential threat of the genocidal enemy, which is Hamas. And this is why we got to the situation that we got to on October 7th. Every year, we were pushed into a ceasefire, either by ourselves or others pushed us into a ceasefire, and we never actually uprooted the real cause of all these problems and the repression of the Gazans themselves. So I don't think that that is the message from the United States, and I'm pretty sure that they will help us once again with their veto power, because the Americans have made it very clear who the good guys and the bad guys are in the story.
And so as the UN is set once again to vote on a call for a ceasefire, after initially delaying the vote due to a concern of a U.S. veto, whatever the outcome, will this have any real impact on the war and on Israel's mission?
Well, look, international pressure is never good. And the other side, Hamas, a genocidal, misogynistic, homophobic regime, has managed to gain incredible support from people who normally would not be allies. And they've managed somehow to spin themselves as a liberation movement when we all know exactly what they are and how they've repressed their own people, their own women, how they've killed their own political opponents, how they've jailed their own journalists, etc. But international pressure on Israel is not good. But we have to move forward mainly to bring back our hostages and put Hamas in a corner so they have no choice but to bring back our hostages and also to uproot them. Remember, in their own words, Hamas are saying again and again that October 7th was only a dress rehearsal, that they want to continue, that they're going to do it again. And so what is Israel supposed to do? Just sit back and let the threat grow?
You know, absolutely. And the United Arab Emirates, though, is the one introducing this resolution to the UN Security Council. And on the one hand, they are an Abraham Accords partner and have remained mostly silent so far. But yet here they are introducing this resolution and continuing to vote against Israel. So what's going on here? I mean, isn't it time that perhaps the moderate Arab nations put an end to this sort of double talk when it comes to Israel?
So that's a really interesting question. And we have to look at it in the context that the UAE is at the moment the head of the Arab bloc of moderate countries. So they've got this kind of responsibility to act in the name of that kind of pan-Arab bloc. At the same time, we can't forget that a couple of weeks ago, the Arab League met in order to do two things. One is pass a resolution getting rid of any American bases in any Gulf countries. And the second was to boycott Israel and boycott any type of normalization in Israel. They did not get the vote through. And that is extremely significant. And in this part of the world, you know, we have to see things in baby steps. And the fact that the Arab League could not pass a vote against America and against Israel, I think, is progress.
Progress. And let's talk now about the hostages. You know, there are many reports of renewed negotiations. How would a new deal and a potential pause in fighting affect, the IDF's operations, affect Israel's mission overall?
So this is really a question for the military experts, but I know that Israel has made it a priority to bring back those hostages, and we can't wait too long. Some of those people are injured, elderly, children, even babies. We cannot wait so long with this because we don't know if and when we're going to be finding them and in what state, and God forbid other tragedies like the mistake that happened a few days ago. So we really have to push for the return of the hostages as the first condition of any deal. And I have full faith that the military establishment will know how to continue its operations after we bring them home.
And now circling back to the U.S. Defense Secretary's visit, you know, he's backing Israel not only with regards to Gaza, he's also sent a clear message to Hezbollah on the northern border and, of course, to the Houthis. The U.S. is now going to lead an international operation against the Houthis, who are, of course, allied with Hamas. I mean, this is a major step up for the United States and for international countries. I mean, what can you tell us about this?
Well, we can't forget that the Houthis have not just been attacking Israel. They've been attacking American targets. They've been attacking the UAE. They've been attacking Saudi. They've been attacking the Abraham Accords countries and the United States. The United States and their assets in the Gulf have been attacked over 60 times since October 7th. So I think that everybody realizes that this is not just our war. It's a war that the free world, or better said, the Islamic fundamentalist regime of Iran and all its proxies against the free world. And therefore, the free world also has to step up and fight alongside Israel.
All right, Fleur, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple. And the Army today announced the deaths of 2 soldiers in the Gaza war. Yesterday, 5 soldiers fell in combat. The toll of troops killed in the ground offensive against Hamas has now risen to 131.
The IDF announced Tuesday that Staff Sergeant Major in the reserves Daniel Yaakov Ben Haroush, 31 from Alon, and Captain in the reserves Rotem Yosef Levi, 24 from Oranit, both fell in battle in the northern Gaza Strip. And on Monday, the IDF announced the names of 5 soldiers that were killed in combat in southern Gaza. This as the fighting in the southern strip has intensified, with the IDF targeting terror tunnels and advancing on Khan Yunis, a Hamas stronghold following the fall of Gaza City. Among the fallen, Sergeant First Class Uriah Bayer, 20, a commando in the Maglan unit from the northern town of Ma'alot Tarshiha. Sergeant First Class Liav Alush, 21, a commando in the Duvdevan unit from Gadera. Master Sergeant in the reserves Eitan Na'eh, 26, also from the Duvdevan unit from Kibbutz De Eliyahu in northern Israel. Master Sergeant in the reserves Tal Filiba, 23, of the Combat Engineering Corps Yahalom unit from Rehovot. Sergeant First Class in the reserves Lidor Yosef Karavani, 23, from Eilat. May they all be of blessed memory.
And Qatari mediators are reportedly working toward a new hostage-for security prisoners deal between Israel and Hamas. According to Israeli sources, a proposal has been placed on the table for the release of all women, sick, injured, and elderly remaining in terrorist captivity in Gaza. The details in the following report from ILTV's William Sharon.
Mossad Director David Barnea met in Warsaw with Qatar Prime Minister and CIA Director William Burns to prepare the ground for renewed talks for another hostage deal. It was the first time that Israeli and Qatari officials met since Hamas broke a week-long ceasefire, when it refused to hand over the last group of female hostages, plus 2 children, as part of an agreed-upon deal in exchange for a pause in fighting. Israel is reportedly ready to offer a more generous number of Palestinian Arab security prisoners this time around. In the earlier deal, 3 security prisoners were released in exchange for each hostage. Hamas is publicly saying there will be no hostage deal without a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Israel has insisted that a new deal with Hamas must take place under fire. Meanwhile, Hamas released a propaganda video of 3 elderly Israeli hostages in captivity since October 7th. The family of 80-year-old Yoram Metzger said they were happy to see a sign of life, but wants him home now.
It was a joy for a moment to see them alive, to see them okay, sitting, talking. That's it. They're the same people I know, but they lost weight and they seem to be weak.
The 2 other men in the video were identified as 79-year-old Chaim Peri and 84-year-old Amiram Kupel. All 3 were taken hostage over 10 weeks ago, with about 240 others by Hamas infiltrators. 130 remain still in captivity.
And a U.S.-led coalition of 10 nations has been formed to counter Yemenite Houthi rebel attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said Operation Prosperity Guardian will put an end to Houthi missile and drone attacks on ships transiting the sea. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced Operation Prosperity Guardian in cooperation with the UK, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Bahrain, and Seychelles. Other countries have agreed to be involved in the operation, but prefer not to be publicly named. The coalition plan is designed to quell Houthi missile and drone attacks on ships transiting the Red Sea and to tackle what it described as the challenge posed by this non-state actor, the Yemenite Houthi rebels.
The lifeblood of the rules-based international order is actually seawater. All countries have the right to move freely and lawfully in international waters. But that foundational global right is under new threat today from the totally unacceptable attacks on merchant vessels by the Houthis in Yemen.
Since the start of the war in Gaza, the Houthis have fired missiles and drones toward the Israeli southern port city of Eilat. Most were shot down by Western or Israeli air defenses or fell harmlessly, failing to reach Israeli airspace. Houthi rebels have in recent weeks escalated attacks on tankers, cargo ships, and other vessels in the Red Sea, imperiling a transit route that carries up to 12% of global trade. The armed group that controls much of northern Yemen has declared itself part of the, quote, Axis for Resistance of Iranian-affiliated groups and says its attack campaign is aimed at ending the war in Gaza.
America's commitment to Israel is unwavering, and no individual, group, or state should test our resolve. So in the Red Sea, we're leading a multinational maritime task force to uphold the bedrock principle of freedom of navigation. Iran's support for Houthi attacks on commercial vessels must stop.
Some of the nation's navies will take part in joint patrols while others provide intelligence support in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Separately, the United States is calling on the United Nations Security Council to take action against the attacks.
And since October 7th, Israelis have seen an outpouring of support from people around the world. Well, following the attack, our next guest jumped on a plane from Miami to Israel to support the IDF, the families of the hostages, and the victims of the October 7th massacre. Let's take a quick look.
Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel, Am Israel. Beautiful American Israel flag. Every person here, this is Miluim, okay? Miluim, okay? This is reserve, okay? So Miluim, each one of them have a proper job. Well, it's coming to Hanukkah time, and we are buying plenty of gifts for the kids in Kfar Aza and Ofakim and to many other towns that have lost loved ones, and they need to get the spirit of Hanukkah. תראה את זה, תראה את הפרצוף שלו, תראה את זה. וואי, 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 וואי. So powerful. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
And joining us now in the studio is pro-Israel activist from Miami, Joseph Wax. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to understand from you, you hopped on a plane from Miami, came to Israel. Why was it so important for you personally to come here during this time?
I was sitting in Miami, watched what was going on, and I said, how can I possibly be sitting down doing absolutely nothing? I can get out and I could demonstrate. That was very important. But I wanted to get hands-on, on the ground, and help our people.
And so, we got a little bit of a feel in the video as to what you're doing here, but can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you've been doing? Because I know you've really been all over the country, from north to south, east to west, so why don't you give us a little bit more insight?
So I never realized how small Israel is. North to south is literally a day's activity for us. We traveled around. It started off really visiting the places of Kfar Aza and Be'eri, and afterwards we went to a small little town called Ofakim. And I was in the middle of the street over there, and these little boys came up to me. A group of 5 kids came up to me, and they asked me, do I want to eat or drink something? Am I hungry or thirsty? And I said, no, I'm not. And a few minutes into a conversation, I found out that Ori, his father, the one that offered me food and drink, his father and his brother were killed in the firefight. And around the corner, his whole family was sitting Shiva, were mourning the death. And we went there to visit the family. And ever since then, we became very close friends. And this Monday, in a few days, we're having a bar mitzvah in honor of Ori. We're going to be doing it over here in Tel Aviv. All his classmates are going to be coming, so we're going to be celebrating it together, because Ori is our child as well now.
Wow, that's really, really remarkable. And, and I understand that, you've been helping so many people around the country. You also have a son right now who's serving in the IDF.
Could be the youngest person in Miluim, in reserve, because he finished he was a lone soldier from Miami. He came and he finished his service 2 months before the war started. Was sitting in Miami, found out that 70 of his comrades from Golani were killed. He said, Tati, that's what he calls me, Ta, I cannot sit here in Miami and watch this going down. He picked himself up without a tzav shmona, without anything. We went to the airport, paid his ticket, and he came to Israel. 2 weeks later, they accepted him in the basis, and he's been on the Golan Heights ever since then. I am super proud.
Absolutely. And you know, you talked about Ori and sort of the impact that he had on you personally. Were there any other meetings or events that really stood out for you during your time here?
So every single day, what we do is we wake up in the morning, and then I travel over to a place in the Gush where my friend Amit has an entire operation. Amit is an absolute legend that's been helping me from day one when I arrived here. I literally had no idea what I was doing. I came here, went to the kotel, I prayed, and I'm not a big prayer type of guy, but I prayed, and from there on, it just rolled. And we went, every single day, went down to the Hamal, to the war room, picked up all different types of items for soldiers from the Kerem of Gush Etzion, and then started distributing, going to families, going to soldiers. Every single minute, there's another experience. You saw in that video that little boy getting a car. That is such a remarkable story. I asked the child, I said to him, his name is Betaya. His father was murdered a few weeks ago outside a yeshuv called Einat. I've never even heard of that yeshuv before. And most of these places that I've been to, Patish, Ofakim, I've never been there. I knew Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Golan. I love Israel, but I don't know about these places until recently. And I fell in love with all these places. And I said to him, what would you like, Betaya, what would you like for Hanukkah? So he went into the kitchen, thought for 5 minutes, came back, and he told me he wants to have a truck. Why? Because that's where his father got murdered, on a truck. Heartwarming, crazy. I went down to Psagot to visit some friends of mine, and I told them, this boy wants a truck. And I had no way, where can I get it from? Where am I going to pick it up? And an Arab that works in Psagot says, I just bought a truck. It's too big for my house. And he gave us a 3,000 shekel gift for this boy. So if you want to talk about stories in Israel, this happens on a constant basis. Every single minute of my life here in Israel, this place is an apocalypse. It's like the stories of the Tanakh, where it's so extreme, so crazy, so insane, and good and bad. There's evil on the other side, which we know about, which has been affected, but there's so much good and so much unity and so much love on the other side too.
All right, Yosef Laks, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and for sharing your important message.
Thank you.
And moving on, comedian Jerry Seinfeld has arrived in Israel together with his family in a show of solidarity and support. The Seinfeld actor was spotted in Tel Aviv on Monday and met with the families of Israeli hostages abducted by Hamas at their headquarters in Tel Aviv. He was also seen wearing the dog tag necklace with the insignia "Bring Them Home," worn to show support and call for the release of the hostages. Seinfeld has been a longtime supporter of Israel and most recently saw pro-Palestinian protesters marching outside his show in New York over this support. He's the latest celebrity to arrive in Israel after the October 7th massacre. Actors Michael Rappaport, music mogul Scooter Braun, and singer Montana Tucker all also recently visited Israel in solidarity. Braun shared his experiences in Israel, including visiting the sites of the October 7th massacres with his 3.8 million followers, and said what he saw and witnessed would never leave him, adding that he would come back again and again, and you guessed it, again. A wonderful show of support for the people of Israel.
Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, editor of All Israel News. Sign up for our free daily email for the latest news from Jerusalem. Go to allisrael.com.
And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around the country tonight with lows of around 11 degrees Celsius or 51 Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we have cloudy skies alongside steady top temperatures, seeing highs of around 13 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Lidar Grevelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.